Welcome to Take It from the Ironwoman. My name is Susanne Müller, your host and the Ironwoman. This podcast is about empowering yourself and others to make real changes in the world. You will hear from everyday, smart, sophisticated, hip people like you and me. Not everybody has to be an Ironwoman to impress the world. Together, we will learn from the sports and business leaders how you can become a more successful person as an entrepreneur or a leader. It's one step at a time, one day at a time. Take your steps now. Take your big steps now. Join me on this journey to success. Take it from the Ironwoman. We only have special guests, and today we go to Switzerland, my home country, and we meet Angela Heck. We were speakers at the Body, Mind and Soul event. Angela, what do you do now and what have you been doing?
Thank you very much for the invitation. Well, tons have changed since 2017. I still love what I do, but I mainly work with people, with Constellation Work in the meanwhile. I've decided to support everyone in feeling better within themselves. But before I start about that, I'd like to tell you where I'm from Switzerland. I live super close to the beautiful Lake of Zurich. I have this picture perfect scenery in front of my office. On one window, I see the lake, and the other window, I see the mountain and the Alps. I'm very privileged. I am very, very privileged. And the village I'm from is actually also the village where Johanna Spyri was born, which is the author of Heidi. I guess Heidi is better known in this world than more or less everybody else from Switzerland.
Heidi and Roger Federer are competing. Well, every kid who grows up will see the Heidi movie at one point. And I always say, I'm Heidi with the curls from Switzerland, but I'm the modern Heidi. So it's very nice to kind of like relive what Johanna Spyri has done for us. It's a powerful story. The little girl going to Frankfurt. How do you transfer that into your constellation work?
I actually have a lot of similarities with Heidi. I grew up in the middle of nowhere, people might think. It's really far away. In the meanwhile, we have more streets, but back then it was definitely in the middle of nowhere. And then we went out to the big, big world. She went to Frankfurt. I used to live in Egypt, India, and the US. I lived close to Washington, D.C. What I took from her story as well as from mine is you have to follow your heart. But unfortunately, due to our schooling system, due to life, due to families, we sometimes forget how it is to listen to it. And with constellation work, for me, it's like a translator from heart-soul message to your brain. Instead of just following what we think, which is nice and not always wrong, by the way, that the knowledge of my heart is much smarter than the knowledge of my brain. And yeah, I know that sounds a bit funny, but as a matter of fact, I can explain it in a super simple way. All of us have fallen in love in this life. We have this imagination of this tall, blonde, whatever, Nordic guy, for example, and you see him and your brain goes, super, and your heart does nothing. And then you see this little short guy who is absolutely not on the hit list, and your brain is mashed potatoes and your heart starts to jump. Perfect match. He's not the perfect look probably in the first second, but he's the perfect match. So the heart knows the way as the brain just follows and becomes mashed potato. But when the brain decides he is the right person, doesn't mean that the heart is in it. So the heart is testing what the brain is saying, but the brain is not testing what the heart is saying.
Okay, I need to verify a little bit when my heart is talking versus my brain is talking. And the other day I was at a webinar and somebody says, when we talk about brain, the brain has never seen the outside world. I thought that was such a strong message. The brain has never seen the outside world. So everybody's talking about the brain, neural pathways and neuro whatever. The brain has never seen the outside world. Isn't that cool?
It's true. Our brain is absolutely great. We have this ego part, which is protecting us from doing stupid things, to be honest. But unfortunately, it can be cheated on with telling it that something is dangerous that is absolutely not. I remember I had this test I had to write where I had to write down 100 words which was for me not fun. Things have to have a reason. Just to put down 100 words is for me useless. So I had mistakes, of course. And I never heard, wow, we made 97 words right. No, no, no. It was always like, you have a mistake. You have 3 words wrong. My brain was like going to, okay, I make a mistake. I'd rather don't do anything. And this is unfortunately a little bit what we get taught too much. So that's why our heart is not afraid. If our heart starts to say, whoa, that's dangerous, then it is really dangerous.
And in the business world, we always talk about the results and the best idea. Until we get to the best idea, we also have the worst idea, the crappy idea. We have to have many more ideation until we get to the best idea. This is not so easy.
No and yes. The funny part is you have to look at all these businessmen. There is some businessmen, you get the imagination, they can touch whatever, it's gold. They trust their gut. They never follow only their brain. They're super good in what they do, but they trust their gut. It's just not popular to say, I trust my gut, or I do personal work a lot, or I reflect myself a lot, or whatever. It's just not popular, or it wasn't popular. Finally, we start to get there. But these managers are people who reflect themselves, who see their staff not as their partners for them. And it's not like, they're just employees. I pay them. They have to do what I say. They want them to think by themselves. They want to be active. This is the difference. That's why there is people out here in business which are super, super successful, and some which just, they have, I'd say, a good job and they get some money, but it's nothing spectacular.
Mediocrity.
Yeah.
And in your constellation work, who is your audience? And you spoke about managers and you said he. What about women? I'm interested in that.
Well, I said he because I'm used to say he, but as a matter of fact, women have more the impression they have to learn to understand the constellation part. Men just do it. We all know it. I sometimes work with children. It's not very often, but sometimes when people are out of help, they think, okay, probably Angela, and then they come to me, which is, I love to help wherever I can. So I either support one person, which is mainly then managers which have to support teams, or I can also go into the teams and work with them. But that never works if the team lead has to be open and willing to learn. We say in German that the fish stinks from the head. That's how it is. If the management is not willing to join the whole procedure, there is no chance, because I always have to start on top. It's really interesting that women think, they're not sure if they can do that. They're absolutely amazing. They understand the constellation better than men do, because there is those men who function by gut. They just do it automatically correct. And the others want to understand. And part of the constellation work you can just explain. Like, for example, when I sit in a meeting room, I can explain very, very easily who has to sit where and who is at the wrong place. You can see that, you can feel it. That's the point. You can partially feel it, but you cannot explain it like step 1, 2, 3, 4. And then they get in this trouble like, what do I do now? And women are more like, okay, that's a little bit like the table at home when families are sitting at a table. And that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that table. That's interesting. And what the listeners want to know, where do I need to sit, let's say, as a coach, as a consultant, or?
As the coach or as the consultant, the best would be you be a little bit outside of the table because you are observing. As the leader, it is the top of the table, but now the question is there a door? Where is the door? Is it a house which is built fully of glass, which is something that architects love? But this glass going down to the ground of the floor, like the full side is glass, gives you the feeling like falling out of the building. At the airport Zurich, there is a building that's the worst you can build to give people security. There is zero security, but just you don't feel it. So you have to be aware that as the leader, you have to have a wall behind you. But for example, if you have a talk to an employee that is not so nice, like something like a real problem, make sure that they sit in a safe space. So they have a wall behind them because you're in the stronger position. You don't mind if you have a door or a glass. This is very simply explained, and something that all of us nearly experienced is that in a family, on a family table, usually the smallest child is in the completely wrong place because they stay beside the mother and they're not supposed to sit on the side of the mother. And then they become unseen. So they have the imagination by emotions that they are not existing. Let's build up a table quickly. Do it the easy way. So we put dad on the top, and then there's on the left side is the mom. Then comes the oldest child, the second child, and then the third child, which means the youngest one is sitting on the side of the father. This is a simple rule. If you follow that one in a family, it's much more quiet at the table. Not fun to change sometimes, but when it works, it works. And it's actually the same in a meeting room. You have the boss or women boss, that doesn't matter. And the right hand has to sit on the right side because it is the right hand. It's the support. It's like the shadow that supports the boss. And then the others, you sit from the years you are on the position and what position.
It's a hierarchy.
Right. It's a hierarchy, but not by paper. It's by heart and by what you do. Like, for example, if there is a younger guy working there for 5 years and an older guy is working there for 2 years, the younger guy is above, but it depends on what he's doing. If the older guy with only 2 years is much is better in his job, then it switches again. So it's always very active, but it helps them to know where they are, where they're standing, and they feel safer when they're in the right place. And it really starts with kids. And it goes up to, actually any family affair. So any Christmas table, any Easter, whatever affair, you have this where you can look at it. It's a bit more complicated with more than 4 or 5 person, but you actually find out who sits at the right place and who feels comfortable and who not. Also, who gets a bit more drunk.
I've heard at the United Nations, they only have round tables. How about that?
That's okay. Then the person who is in charge just has to make it clear, here I am, that's my place, and my right hand is here. It's not, that doesn't matter if it's a round table. The person in charge just has to be aware what she is doing or he.
They have the round tables because it creates less conflict. That's what I heard once. I don't know.
It's a nice idea, but the conflict is within the people and not from the table shape. But it's actually the thought of it I like. I definitely like that thought.
I'm just amazed by when you said like the glass, and obviously so many new buildings are just glass. It looks nice from the outside, but in a way it's, you fall off. You don't have a grounding. I also know that you're writing a book. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, well, I finished a book, but my books are so far still in German. I have one little book that's called Intuition to Go, but it's in German. And I will publish a book that's called Seelenoase. It means like the oasis for my soul, which tells my journey, how I supported my partner, my previous partner, during his very, very, very strongly burnout. Something that we face in these days very often, that people get into it and don't really heal or don't heal properly, as I'd say. But my book is about how it is to support someone, to be the person beside, which means the right hand in this moment, but not getting a lot of support because you're just unseen. And if I wouldn't have had that knowledge of constellation work, if I wouldn't have had other knowledge, I would have gone lost, completely lost in this situation. But I thought it's very important to write this book, to publish it. As soon as it's out in German, I'll let you. But it's not getting out that quickly, unfortunately, because it's very emotional. It's very personal. For me, it was important to give people some ideas how they can protect themselves, support themselves, because there is no system out there supporting the supporter of the sick ones. The sick ones get supported, but the supporter needs support.
What do you do when you don't work?
I walk with my dog. I have a marvelous Italian, huge 70-pound dog. She's a lady. Yeah, she's definitely a lady. Her breed is here to protect the sheep, not to tell them what to do. She's really protecting them. she's off the street, so that's why she's not working. So when I'm off, she's off with me walking. Actually, she has then to work and we go for long, long, beautiful walks. Yeah. This is one of the things I love to do. And I'm reading books like a maniac. From time to time, it's a bit headache for others. Like for my last 2-week vacation, I had like 10 books with me.
Give us some titles. The listeners, they always ask me, what kind of good books do you have?
One book that I don't know how many times I read it already. It's Go Where Your Heart Belongs To. It's Vado vi ti porta il cuore. Susanna Tamaro. It's not a very new book, but I just love it. I just read a book from Romina Scalco, which has a funny title in German. She's asking, does slim mean that you're happy? And because she's just, she has a very funny way to describe how you can eat healthy without becoming completely crazy in your head and use it on a daily basis. Oh, good God. I like this old stuff, like Effie Briest. I was reading Chaplin's Memoirs, the whole biography of Charlie Chaplin. I was visiting the place where he lived in Switzerland. I love this. By the way, if you come to Switzerland, you have to go there. It's such a beautiful place in a completely different area where I live. What else? I have so many books. There is one book I like to look at. It's called Mein Esel Benjamin. It's called My Donkey Benjamin. It's actually a children's book, but the story of a little girl and the donkey they meet, and they meet out of whatever they meet, and then they become friends. And she's not questioning that it's donkey, and the donkey's not questioning that it's a girl. And that sometimes I need this energy into this world to have it a little bit more.
Thank you for giving us a glimpse into your life and the constellation. And I will pay more attention of where I'm sitting. This is something that I'm really taking away. So thank you so much for this nice conversation. Take It From the Ironwoman. We have episodes every Monday. And Take It From the Ironwoman, Global Business Coaching with Sports Parallel is also the book. Download it or get it in your local bookstore. Thank you for your support. Like us, write a review